Before I explain why I'm switching to Unreal, I think I should explain why I didn't use it in the first place. Just a warning, in hindsight these reasons seem petty and short-sighted. The first reason was the UI. I really hated the UI of Unreal, but that's getting fixed. The second reason is the way you worked with lighting in Unreal. Just compare these two and ask yourself which will take longer. Obviously this isn't a comparison of the lighting. I did functionally zero work on either other than getting a similar angle. Both can light a scene in stunning ways. I do prefer CryEngine's way though. The third reason is the default collisions. These are obviously also tweakable and not really a valid complaint, but I did say some of my reasons were petty. As for why I'm swapping? Well, it is kind of obvious if you think about it. But here is a quick rundown. I originally didn't like this, but as time went on, I grew to prefer a node-based workflow. Unreal's default third-person camera is objectively superior. Obviously, this can also be tweaked for both engines. Like, what is this camera? It's like they took first person and just moved it 2 meters back and called it a day. Function prototyping is much easier in Unreal. Just mapped it to shoot, so that there's at least an audio cue when I press the button. Honestly, you could do it like this, but that's not the point I'm trying to make. Things like this should be done in code in CryEngine. Flowgraph is better for controlling game events and logic. It's why they have schematics slated for the next release. Unreal has blueprints. And while I'm not going to pretend I know how to use blueprints effectively, it neatly leads us to the first of the two main reasons why I'm switching. Let's be honest here, CryEngine's community is in a questionable state. Tutorials either don't exist or they are almost 10 years old. To Crytek's credit, they are trying to fix this, but it's really frustrating. But it's free to use, I hear you say. Yes, but actually no. You have to use the resource compiler to get assets into CryEngine, and while this isn't bad per se, in fact I think the resource compiler is brilliant. The issue is to get the most out of it, and by extension CryEngine, you get pushed into using certain products. While I have never used 3ds Max or Maya, I have used both Photoshop and GIMP and ran the same textures through both. With GIMP you get a decent result most of the time, however there are times when the resource compiler creates artifacts on the textures. Photoshop creates perfect results and does it consistently. This could easily be solved by creating a resource compiler plugin for GIMP. Blender is my preferred 3D modeling tool, and while Blender usually plays nice with CryEngine, the problem you run into is that there is functionally no documentation on how to get specific types of models into the engine, like models set up for jointed braking. 99% of the documentation is for 3ds Max or Maya. Epic on the other hand is actively supporting the development of Blender, and while it might mean nothing directly, it's comforting nonetheless. Unreal 5 is said to come out of beta next year, and projects being compatible across engine versions is a huge incentive to swap. I've had trouble importing older CryEngine assets on newer engines, so when, and if, they release their new engine, I don't have any guarantee of it working properly if I port it, which makes me not want to do anything big. They've also been promising to release 5.7 for like 2 years now with no release date in sight. Honestly, they should just call it CryEngine 6, or 7 if they don't like using even numbers. Next gen is already here, in theory at least. Just my anecdotal experience, but it doesn't inspire confidence. Don't get me wrong, I still think CryEngine is competitive as it stands today and it is a great engine. It's just that as a solo act, I will do everything myself and I need to take as much of a load off my own shoulders as possible so I can make what I want to make, rather than struggle with the lack of documentation.